Hi, I always supported the Palestinian movement. When we were young, we used to read all those books about the war in Lebanon, about the freedom fight for the Palestinians, about the massacres in Sabra and Satila, and the resistance movement by PLO and Yasser Arafat. Being a Bengali, we had access to the books in Bengali. And then during those 80s, when I remember those images of Yasser Arafat carrying those two pistols on a holster coming to India and embracing Indira Gandhi. I was proud of our support of the Palestinian cause, of our bitter experience of colonialism and how we fought against colonialism and how we continue to fight against Israeli occupation and their colonialism. And let's face it, Israel is a colony, there is no question about it. They usurped and occupied somebody else's land and settled in there. It's the same as America or New Zealand and Australia. Only difference is that it's very recent. There are people who were dispossessed back then, they're still alive. That's the only difference. So I was very pro-Palestinian, and I was very proud that our country supports this cause. And that stayed with me all along with the fight for Cuba or Vietnam, and as we all grew up with all this communist ideology, we were always that. And then when I went abroad, I went to the US, and I saw that the bitter end towards which the America supports Israel to promote the greed for oil and their dominance of the Middle East. And then I went to Canada to study there. In Canada, they have, of course, this Western countries is somewhat of a contradiction. At the same time, they promote imperialism. At the same time, they are so liberal. They accept all these refugees from Lebanon and Palestine, particularly in Canada. There's a huge population of Palestinian refugees and Palestinian refugees who grew up in Lebanon. In our college, there was one guy whose name is Jalal Kouas. He was a Palestinian refugee who grew up in a refugee camp in Lebanon. And he came to Canada. By the way, he never had a passport. The Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, they don't get passports. They get travel documents issued by UN. So he came to Canada with those travel documents, and then finally he became a Canadian citizen. And he was so happy the day he became Canadian citizen. I was with him. He was so happy and proud. Finally he got a passport. And we became friends because we were studying under the same guide, Lisa Hayam, and she was again one leftist green supporter. But so Jalal one day invited me to his home to have dinner, and I went there, and it's the same, this Middle Eastern way of eating food. They serve the bread on the table, no plate, and then they serve the meat together on the same plate, and you have to eat together sharing the plate, and that's how we eat. And we talked, and he was showing on TV. And by the way, back then, that was in 2005 2006. Back then 2002 3. Back then the Intifada was going on, right? So and then there was a war going on in South Lebanon between Hezbollah and Israel. And then Hezbollah drove out the Israeli army out of South Lebanon. And this guy Jalal was so happy. He was showing me on TV about the events unfolding. We could see during the dinner that how Israeli army is retreating and living in South Lebanon, going home. He was so happy there. And then during that Intifada of those 2001, 2002, this Ariel Sharon time, there were frequent protests in our college campus, in our university campus, by the pro-Palestinian lobby. There was a huge pro-Palestinian movement there. And I used to join them. I had a poster on my cubicle, and that poster was Charlie Chaplin with a caption saying, "Palestinian crying to laugh." It was a very poignant message about how Palestinian peoples are suffering. And since then I came home, and every time there was a war, and my heart was bleeding for the people of that land, and how they're suffering, their children, how they're being dispossessed, how they're being deprived of their hope of a good living, of a decent humanity, a decent life, right? Human rights, everything, right? They're being thrown away from their homes in old quarters of Jerusalem and everywhere, and then how Israel keeps on grabbing land in the West Bank. So every time and the war keeps happening, right? And Palestinian people don't have no lack of courage to fight the occupation. So they keep fighting, and they just keep war. And then the most brutal thing happened in last October 7th, when this Hamas guys went in there and killed so many Israelis and took hostages, and then Israel came back, and then they completely decimated Gaza. And how many people killed, nobody knows. How many children killed. I mean, it's just heartbreaking, isn't it? If you see the suffering of those children, it's just, I just couldn't sleep many nights. Particularly that incident when, remember, that girl was calling that aid agent and saying, she's seeing tanks coming to kill her, and said, "Can you come and get me, please?" And they couldn't. That 6-year-old girl died. And as I said, I couldn't sleep many nights. So that went on, and then I really, as I said, I kept on fighting the war as much as I could on social media, on LinkedIn, and everywhere. I took a fight with my friends who supported Israel. And whenever I see that all this discussion happening on TV, and I just get enraged about all this mathematics about who is what, and how many Palestinians, what the Israeli hostage, and so on. I mean, for me, I don't know. I mean, I can't even explain what does it mean. I mean, other day there was a discussion going on that Israel killed like 274 Palestinians to free up 4 hostages. Someone is asking, is it what proportion? I mean, who cares? I mean, is there any meaning to this? Human lives can be compared and by mathematics and proportion. I mean, to give an example, if 4 Indians are held hostage by Pakistani terrorists, and India kills 4 million Pakistanis, I would say it's worth it. Right? Kill 40 million Pakistani terrorists to free up 4 Indian hostages. I wouldn't mind. So I can't blame Israel is doing the same thing to free up their own hostages, but at the same time, I don't support their colonialism. These are 2 distinct things, and we have to understand that they are separate things. And the last night I had a very bad cold attack, and I couldn't sleep. I was thinking about this war and where it's heading to, and how it's setting in fatigue. I mean, you cannot be sorry for 7 months for somebody else. It's not possible. And you get fatigue. It's a fact. And I realized that the whole human history is not just. You cannot always make sure that the right always wins. It's not possible. So the Palestinians has to make a choice. I mean, it is not, unless there is something catastrophic happens, their slogan of from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which I always chanted. Even when I went to London in November, I was walking with the protesters and I was chanting the same slogan. But it's absurd. Is it a rational thought that someday America, all the white people will disappear from America and leave the country to the native population? Is it possible to think that the whole Australians will walk away or the New Zealanders will walk away and leave the country to the Maoris? Is it going to happen? No, it's not. So unless there is a huge catastrophe, a 3rd World War, and The entire West, including America, is completely decimated. And the whole Arab world unite together and completely destroy Israel, Israel is going to be there. The sooner the Palestinians realize that, is better. It's better for the well-being of the whole world. It is not possible to keep the world hostage for a strip of land, 20 kilometers or 40 kilometers. It's not worth it. Our world life, our well-being, our happiness, everything, it's not worth it. They have to accept it at some point. Does that mean I'm abandoning Palestinian cause? I'm not. Does that mean I'm supporting colonialism? I'm not. What I'm saying is the cycle of violence is not achieving anything. At some day, Palestinians need to figure out that they have to start a peaceful movement to achieve a homeland with the Jews. I'm sorry to say that. I'm absurd. I'm so angry at myself that I'm saying that they have to cede their land to the Jews, but it's a fact. Nothing can change that. Other than, as I said, it's a catastrophe probably. None of us would like to have that. Right? And relieve the whole world of this recurrence of depression and violence and everything. And if they really want something positive, they should convince their friends, the Qataris, the Kuwaitis, and I absolutely hate those countries, man. They're much, much worse than Israel. The Kuwaitis, the Qataris, the Saudis, the Egyptians, to lean upon their benefactor, America, and kind of convince America to force Israel to come to a peace. That is the only option available. There is nothing else is available. Only America can bring peace to the place. And America is not going to do that by themselves. Is that there has to be a peaceful movement in Palestine, forcing all the Arab nations to lean upon America, to force America to make sure that Israel makes a peace. That's the only way out of this mess. Otherwise, all of us will be held hostage for the rest of our lives. I'm 53-year-old. I'm not 25 anymore. I cannot keep hanging posters on my wall and be depressed for the rest of my life for a piece of land that is far, far away from my home. And that is, again, a dream that is not possible to fulfill. So that's where my stand now about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I'll support any peace process, but I will be aloof from any future war. I'm not abandoning you guys, but I am being practical. Thanks for watching.